I always thought the baby monitor was just a way to keep my sanity. Those little moments of silence when I could finally sit on the couch with our daughter asleep in my arms and still hear if she stirred in the crib upstairs. But that night changed everything. It was one of those quiet evenings, soft music playing in the background, lights dimmed, our baby Lily nestled against me, her tiny chest rising and falling as she breathed. I had just gotten her to sleep, and the house was finally still. My husband, Brian, had gone upstairs, saying he needed to grab something from the office. I didn't think much of it, until the monitor on the coffee table lit up. At first, I assumed it was interference or maybe static, but then I heard it, low voices whispering. I froze. It wasn't just one voice. Brian was clearly one of them. I recognized his tone instantly, but there was someone else. A woman. I turned the volume up just a notch, careful not to wake Lily, and tried to make out what they were saying. It was muffled, but one word hit me like a freight train. Tonight. My heart began to race. Why would he be whispering about tonight in our baby's room? I looked down. Lily was still sleeping peacefully in my arms. That meant the room was empty. Or at least it should have been. The monitor only activates when there's sound, so whatever I was hearing was happening in that room. I didn't move for a full minute, trying to process whether I was imagining this. But the voices continued, low and urgent. I heard Brian say, "She's downstairs, just keep your voice down," followed by a soft laugh from the woman. My stomach dropped. There was no plausible explanation for this. I slowly stood up, holding Lily carefully against me, and made my way to the stairs, every step feeling like I was moving through water. My brain screamed at me not to go, to just turn off the monitor and pretend I hadn't heard anything, but my body moved on its own. I stopped outside the nursery door, heart pounding, holding my breath. Silence. Then a faint creak behind me. I turned, and Brian was there, standing in the hallway empty-handed. His eyes flicked down to Lily, then to the baby monitor still in my hand, and I watched the color drain from his face. "What are you doing?" he asked too quickly. I didn't answer. I looked past him. The nursery door was slightly ajar, and from inside, I thought I saw a shadow move. I clutched Lily tighter against my chest, her warmth grounding me as I tried to steady my breath, but my eyes were fixed on that barely open nursery door, the soft creak of the old hinges still echoing in my ears, and the unmistakable sensation that someone, had just moved behind it. Brian stepped toward me, his voice laced with a forced calm that only made the dread coil tighter in my gut. "You're probably just tired, babe," he said, reaching for my arm like that could erase what I'd heard, what I'd seen. "It's probably just the baby monitor picking up interference again." But I knew what I'd heard. That wasn't static. That wasn't a dream. It was his voice and a woman's laugh, and it came from inside that room. I ignored him, moving past with slow, deliberate steps, feeling the tremble in my knees but refusing to stop. I nudged the nursery door open with my foot, the hinges groaning as if protesting what was about to come, and I stepped inside, holding Lily securely while scanning the small space. Nothing. The crib was empty, of course, since I had Lily with me. The rocking chair was still, her stuffed animals neatly in the basket beside it, the monitor blinking its small green light from the corner shelf. No woman. No man. Just the faint smell of baby powder and Brian's cologne. I turned in a slow circle, heart still hammering, but there was no one there. "See." Brian's voice came from behind me, trying to sound light. "Nothing. You're probably just—" I cut him off. "I heard you," I said without turning. "I heard you talking. Who was in here with you?" The silence that followed was suffocating. When I finally turned to face him, his expression had shifted. Not confusion, not concern, but calculation. Like he was trying to decide how much I already knew. "I came in to grab the monitor," he said after a beat, pointing to the device that was very much not in his hand. It must have recorded an old conversation or something. These things glitch all the time. I stared at him, waiting. He didn't flinch. He was lying. I could feel it in my bones. But before I could press him further, Lily stirred in my arms, her little fingers curling into my shirt, and I realized I needed to get her back to sleep before anything else. "We'll talk downstairs," I said, brushing past him and heading to the guest room instead of our bedroom, because suddenly the idea of sleeping next to Brian felt like sharing a bed with a stranger. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the whispering again. Every creak of the floorboards made me sit up straight. And when I finally drifted off just before dawn, I dreamed of standing in the nursery, only this time, The rocking chair was moving on its own, and I wasn't holding Lily. The next morning, while Brian made coffee and pretended nothing had happened, I checked the baby monitors app on my phone. It had cloud recordings from the previous night. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. I skipped to the time when I'd heard the whispering. There it was, Brian's voice, low and urgent, saying, "She's downstairs." And then, unmistakably, a woman's voice replying, "Then we don't have long." I froze. I didn't know what I was more afraid of, who she was, or what exactly they didn't have long for. My fingers hovered over the screen, the tiny play button pulsing like it knew it held the key to shattering whatever illusion of normalcy I had left. I hit it again. The recording played in that warped, tinny quality of monitor audio, but it was clear. Brian, in our daughter's room, whispering like he thought I'd never find out. "She's downstairs." A woman's voice followed, softer but with an edge of impatience. "Then we don't have long." A rustle. A laugh. The kind of laugh that didn't belong in a nursery. I felt like I was going to be sick. I closed the app, dropped the phone on the guest bed, and held Lily close like she was my last connection to reality. Because suddenly, nothing else made sense. Brian had been acting strange for weeks. Later nights, guarded phone calls, smiling too much when I asked him simple questions. I'd chalked it up to stress, fatherhood, maybe even postpartum weirdness on my end. But this was something else. I thought about every night I'd been alone upstairs with the baby while he caught up on work, or went for a late run. I thought about the times I'd found strange receipts in his pockets, hotel charges he claimed were from client meetings. But now I had a voice. I had her voice. She wasn't just some faceless suspicion anymore. She'd been in my house, in my baby's room. I walked into the hallway, the floor cool under my bare feet, and stared at the closed master bedroom door. Brian was inside, probably checking email, pretending to be a normal husband. I opened the door without knocking. He looked up from the laptop, forced a smile. "Hey, you sleep okay?" "No," I said flatly. "We need to talk." He shut the laptop slowly, eyes narrowing. "About what?" "About what I heard on the baby monitor," I said. "And what I found in the app." His expression didn't flicker. He was too good at this. "You must have imagined it. Those monitors glitch." "Stop lying to me," I said, louder this time. Lily stirred in my arms. I bounced her gently. "I heard you. I heard her. You said I was downstairs. She said you didn't have long." "What did she mean, Brian?" He stood up, hands raised in that mock surrender gesture he always used when he wanted to defuse an argument. "You're tired. You're stressed. You haven't been sleeping. Don't you dare make this about me," I snapped. "Who is she?" His eyes darkened. "You need to calm down. And you need to stop lying." I was shaking now, my voice trembling with anger and something dangerously close to fear. "I want the truth. Right now. Or I swear to God, I'm leaving with Lily and I'm not coming back." That made something shift in him. The facade cracked just slightly, and I saw it. That flicker of guilt, of panic. He turned away, rubbing his hands over his face. "It's not what you think," he muttered. "Then tell me what it is," I demanded. He looked at me. Really looked. And then he said it. "Her name is Jessica. She used to work with me. It was stupid. It was nothing. Just a mistake." "A mistake?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You brought her here. Into our daughter's room. That's not a mistake. That's betrayal." "It only happened once," he said, voice desperate. "I swear. It was late and we were drinking. In our house." I couldn't breathe. While I was asleep upstairs with our baby? He didn't answer. That silence told me everything. I turned around and walked out, heart pounding, brain spinning. Jessica. Her name burned into my skull. This wasn't over, not even close. If Brian thought confessing to one night would make this go away, he was about to learn how wrong he was. Because I was going to find out everything. And when I did, he was going to regret ever letting her in. The next morning, Brian was gone when I woke up. No note. No text. Nothing but his side of the bed already cold. I didn't even bother calling him. Instead, I fed Lily, set her in the stroller, and walked straight to my office, the one room in the house that still felt like it was mine. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and started digging. If Jessica used to work with Brian, I'd find her. And I'd find out exactly what she meant to him. I remembered her voice from the monitor. Calm. Too calm. Like she'd done this before. Like this wasn't new. I logged into Brian's old cloud storage account. He'd used it during his last job, and I still had the login saved. He probably forgot. Classic. Within minutes, I was knee-deep in old shared folders, email exports, and Zoom recordings. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, but then I saw a folder labeled Archives_2022. Inside it, buried beneath invoices and project files, was a folder named J. Just the letter. My heart skipped. I clicked it. Inside were photos. Dozens. Maybe more. Some from the office. Group shots. Happy hour selfies. But too many of just the two of them. At restaurants. In bars. In a hotel lobby. She was blonde. Tall. The kind of pretty that made you feel like you had to explain yourself just for being in the same room. And the way Brian looked at her in those photos, that wasn't a coworker. That was something else. I opened a video file. It was dated just 4 months ago. I hit play. It started mid-conversation. The phone must have been in his pocket. His voice was unmistakable. She suspects something. Jessica, then tell her. Or I will. Brian, don't. I'll handle it. You've been saying that for months. She just had the baby. I can't. So I'm supposed to just wait. Click. End. I sat there frozen. 4 months ago. That was 2 weeks after Lily was born. While I was healing. While I was up every 2 hours nursing, crying, bleeding, he was sneaking around with her. Telling her he couldn't leave me yet. I slammed the laptop shut. My hands were shaking again, but this time not from sadness, from rage. This wasn't just one mistake. This was an affair. A relationship. And worse, Jessica had clearly known about me. About Lily. She had waited. That's what made it worse than betrayal. It was calculated. Cold. I picked up my phone and texted Brian. We're done. I know everything. Don't come home tonight. I'll have my lawyer contact you. I sat back, breathing hard, as my screen lit up with his response. Please. Just let me explain. I deleted it without reading further. Let him squirm. Let him sweat. I had more to do. Because something else had clicked. Jessica hadn't just been in my house. She'd been comfortable in it. Like it wasn't her first time. And if it wasn't her first time, what else had they done here? What else had she touched? Suddenly, I felt like my whole home was contaminated. Like the walls themselves had seen too much. I needed answers. But more than that, I needed control. And I was about to get it. That same afternoon, I dropped Lily off at my sister's place with a rushed excuse about needing to deal with house stuff. And I drove straight to the one person I knew would give me the full truth, my cousin Derek. He works in IT security and owes me big time for keeping quiet about his Vegas wedding fiasco last year. I didn't bother with pleasantries. I walked into his office, handed him Brian's old laptop, and said, I need everything. Emails, messages, hidden folders. Whatever he's been deleting, recover it. Derek raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. I love that about him. 2 hours later, I had a USB stick filled with more filth than I ever imagined. There were texts with Jessica, of course, hundreds of them. Sweet, stupid messages about how she understood him like no one else, and how they deserved to be happy too. But there were also hotel reservations under fake names, Venmo transactions for things like lingerie and wine, even screenshots of apartments for rent. Apartments near her. They were planning something. Not just cheating. Leaving. Starting over. Together. Without me. Without Lily. I was shaking again. Not from heartbreak. From the realization that Brian had mentally checked out of our marriage months ago. He was just playing a role while plotting his escape. But that wasn't even the worst part. Because tucked into one of the email drafts, one he never sent, was something that made my blood turn cold. I'm going to talk to a lawyer next week. Once we figure out custody, I'll tell her. I can't have her taking Lily out of state. I'll make sure the judge sees she's unstable. Unstable. That word hit me like a truck. He was building a case. Probably recording fights, saving texts, anything to paint me like the crazy wife who couldn't handle motherhood. All while he was the one sneaking around. Planning. Lying. The rage I felt was bigger than anything I'd ever experienced. I wasn't just a betrayed wife. I was a target in his plan. And if he wanted war, he was going to get it. I spent that night documenting everything. I printed the emails, copied the texts. I started a timeline, highlighting every suspicious trip, every night he came home late. I even matched hotel receipts with the nights he claimed to be working late or running errands. I created a binder, yes, a literal binder, labeled Custody and Lies. Because if he wanted to play dirty, He had no idea who he was dealing with. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, one who specializes in infidelity-related divorces and high-conflict custody battles. She took one look at my file and said, "You've already done half my job for me." That felt good. Empowering. But the best part? She told me that with the kind of evidence I had, the court would almost certainly favor me when it came to custody. And Brian? He'd be lucky to get supervised visits. I left her office feeling like I had finally taken the power back. But then, that night, something happened that I hadn't planned for. Brian showed up. Not to yell. Not to apologize. But to beg. And what he said at the door changed everything. He stood on the porch, eyes bloodshot, holding a duffel bag like some tragic movie character who'd just realized he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. His voice cracked as he said my name, softly, like we were still us. "Claire, please. Just let me talk." For a split second, I wanted to slam the door in his face. But another part of me, maybe the masochistic one that still wanted to understand why, let him in. He stepped over the threshold like a ghost, looking around the living room as if it had aged since he left. "You took down the anniversary photo," he muttered. I said nothing. He sat down on the couch, buried his face in his hands, and started talking. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," he said. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't know who I was anymore." I folded my arms, keeping my voice cold. "And Jessica helped you find yourself between motel beds?" He winced. "Don't. Please. I know I messed up. But it's over. It's been over." That made me laugh, a bitter, involuntary sound. "It's been over? You were planning to move in with her. You called me unstable in an email to your lawyer." His face turned pale. "How do you know about that?" I stared at him. "You really thought I wouldn't find out?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. He knew he'd lost the right to play shocked. "I didn't mean it," he finally whispered. Jessica said if we were going to make a clean break, we had to have a case. Something the courts would believe. I didn't think you'd ever see it." My fists clenched. "So you were willing to paint me as a bad mother just to make your escape easier?" "I didn't go through with it," he said, as if that erased the intent. "I couldn't. I realized it was wrong." "You realized it was risky," I corrected him. "There's a difference." He looked at me then, really looked at me, with the eyes of someone who knew the bridge had burned, but still stood in the smoke hoping for a miracle. "Claire, I want to come home." I ended things with her. "I've been staying in my car. I don't have anyone else." That sentence hit me harder than I expected. Not because I felt sympathy, but because I finally understood how shallow his safety net was. He destroyed a marriage, risked a family, and gambled his daughter's trust for a woman who dumped him the second things got complicated. And now, when everything had crumbled, he came crawling back, thinking I'd let him in because he had nowhere else to go. But I wasn't the same woman who cried on that bathroom floor weeks ago. I was the woman who had receipts. The woman who was building a legal case. The woman who no longer mistook pity for love. "You can sleep on the couch tonight," I said flatly. "But in the morning, we're talking about custody. Not reconciliation." His face fell. He nodded, accepting the scraps of grace I was willing to give. As I walked up the stairs, I heard him quietly sobbing into his hands. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt nothing. And that scared me more than anything else. Because when the pain fades into numbness, that's when you stop hoping and start planning. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, not because of nerves, but because I'd slept so lightly that even the creak of the house settling sounded like a warning. I stood at the top of the stairs, listening. The couch was empty. For a second, panic shot through me. Had he left in the middle of the night? Had he taken something? But then I saw the back door slightly ajar, and out in the yard, there he was sitting on the patio furniture like a man exiled from his own life. A cup of coffee sat untouched on the table beside him. I watched for a moment, the way his shoulders curled inward, the way he stared into the trees like they might answer a question for him. Then I stepped outside, arms crossed. "We need to talk," I said. He didn't flinch, just nodded. I sat across from him, and for the first time, laid everything out like a case file. I told him I knew about the second phone. I knew about the hotel points, the restaurant charges in towns he said he never visited. I had timestamps, photos, screenshots, enough to make a courtroom go quiet. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the chair. "You were building a case against me," he whispered. "No," I said. "I was preparing for war. You drew the first blood when you lied to our daughter." That one hit him. He leaned forward, clasping his hands. Claire, I swear I never meant to hurt her. Or you. I was selfish. I thought I deserved more. More than what? I asked. More than a family that loved you? More than a home we built together? What exactly was missing that Jessica could give you? His mouth opened, then closed again. No answer. That's what I thought, I said. So here's what's going to happen. I'm not dragging you through court unless you force me to. You'll get visitation. You'll pay child support. And you'll never, ever lie to our daughter again. He nodded, defeated. And the divorce? I looked him dead in the eye. Is already in motion. You'll be served by the end of the week. Silence. And then, for the first time, honesty. I don't blame you. I'd do the same if I were you. But you're not me, I said. You never were. He left an hour later with his duffel bag and the last of his dignity. I didn't cry. I didn't break. I watched him drive off like someone closing the final chapter of a book they should have burned years ago. That night, as I tucked our daughter into bed, she looked up at me and said, "Daddy looked sad." I paused, brushing hair from her forehead. "He's just figuring things out," I said. "But we're going to be okay." She nodded, eyes fluttering shut. And in that moment, I believed it. Not because I wanted to. Because I had to. 3 days later, the papers were served. I knew the exact moment it happened, because he called me less than 5 minutes afterward, his number popping up on my screen like a ghost refusing to stay buried. I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail, and then I listened as he stammered through a half apology, half plea for a conversation I had no interest in having. "I know I messed up," he said. "But please don't make this ugly. For our daughter's sake." I deleted the message without replying. The damage was done, and now it was about healing, not negotiating guilt with someone who only felt sorry after he got caught. Over the next week, the energy in the house shifted. Lighter. Cleaner. I cleared out his closet, boxed up everything, and left it on the porch for him to pick up. I rearranged furniture. I painted a wall in the living room. It felt like reclaiming space he'd been slowly sucking the life out of. And the strangest thing? Our daughter stopped asking about him so much. She still mentioned him, sure, but casually, not with the same weight as before. Like her little mind was already doing the math and realizing something had changed. And maybe it wasn't as scary as it first seemed. Meanwhile, I got a message from Jessica. Not a call. Not even a voicemail. Just a DM, like we were teenagers. "I didn't know he was still with you," she wrote. "He said you were separated." I didn't respond. What could I even say to that? I wasn't going to fight over a man who didn't deserve either of us. But I did take a screenshot and save it, just in case. A week turned into 2, and then one evening, while our daughter was at a playdate, I got a knock at the door. It wasn't him. It was his sister. We'd never been close, but we had a history, family holidays, baby showers, all of it. She looked uneasy. "Can we talk?" she asked. I nodded, stepping aside. Over coffee, she told me everything. That he'd been spiraling for a while. That the affair wasn't a one-time thing. It was a pattern. He'd always wanted admiration, validation. And when he didn't get it, he found it elsewhere. "But you gave him everything," she said. "We all saw it. You were the one holding him together, and he just didn't see it." That hurt more than I thought it would. Not because I didn't know it, but because hearing someone else confirm it made it feel heavier, like I'd been gaslit by my own loyalty. "He's not well," she added. "But he's also not your problem anymore." She hugged me on the way out, and for the first time in weeks, I cried. Not because I wanted him back, but because I was finally grieving the version of him I'd convinced myself was real. I had loved a ghost, and now I was learning how to live without haunting myself. The next day, I sat on the edge of my bed, looking at a framed wedding photo I hadn't yet thrown away. I opened the back, slid the picture out, and replaced it with a drawing my daughter had made of the two of us. Smiling stick figures holding hands under a big yellow sun. A new chapter. One I was ready to write. The day our divorce was finalized, I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel anything, really, just a strange, numbing silence, like my body hadn't caught up to what had just happened. I sat in my car outside the courthouse for a long time, watching people walk by, couples holding hands, parents wrangling toddlers, life moving forward around me. And then, after maybe 30 minutes, I just drove. No destination in mind. I ended up at a park across town, one we used to take our daughter to when she was still in a stroller. I parked, stepped out, and let the wind hit my face. It was early spring, the kind of day where the chill hadn't completely let go but the sun was finally starting to fight back. I sat on a bench and just breathed. No texts. No demands. No more lies buzzing in my pocket. Just me alone, and for the first time in a long time, okay with that. Over the next few days, I slowly began sorting through the remains. Not just the physical things, old receipts, gifts, leftover bits of a marriage that no longer existed, but the emotional leftovers too. I unfollowed him on social media, blocked Jessica, changed the playlist we used to listen to in the car. I didn't do any of it in anger, just necessity, like tearing off a bandage that had overstayed its usefulness. He tried to reach out a few times, not to get back together. He wasn't that delusional, but to try and be civil, whatever that meant. I kept the boundaries firm. I would co-parent. I would communicate where necessary. But I was no longer his emotional landing pad. One night, after putting our daughter to bed, I sat on the couch with a glass of wine and opened the Notes app on my phone. I started writing everything I wish I had said the day I found the messages. Not to send to him. Not even to keep. Just to let it out. I wrote about the betrayal. About the disappointment. About how I wasn't angry at Jessica. I was angry at myself for trusting someone who treated loyalty like a convenience. I wrote until the words blurred and my hands ached. Then I deleted it. Not because it wasn't true, but because I didn't need to carry it anymore. That night, I slept through the entire night for the first time in weeks. No dreams. No jolting awake at 3 a.m. No tears on the pillow. Just peace. And maybe that was the beginning of real closure. Not some dramatic finale or final conversation, but the quiet acceptance that I was still here, still standing, and finally free. A few days later, I got an email from our daughter's school. A class project. She'd written a short paragraph about her hero. It was me. My mom is my hero because she's really strong. Even when things are hard, she always makes me feel safe. And she never lies. I read it 3 times. Then I cried. Not from sadness, but because I finally realized I hadn't failed. I had protected the one person who mattered most. I had kept her safe. And in doing so, I had finally saved myself. It's been almost a year now. A full cycle of seasons since the day I checked his Bluetooth history and everything fell apart. People often ask how long it takes to get over something like that, as if heartbreak has an expiration date or a universal timeline. The truth is, I didn't get over it, I grew around it. The pain is still there, but it doesn't control me anymore. It's like an old scar, sensitive when pressed, but no longer bleeding. I still get flashes sometimes, moments that hit out of nowhere. I'll hear a song we used to dance to in the kitchen, or pass someone wearing his cologne, and for a split second, I'm back there. In the confusion, the betrayal, the deep ache in my chest. But those moments pass quickly now. They're no longer sharp. Just echoes. Our daughter is thriving. She's resilient in ways that amaze me. She still asks questions sometimes. Why we don't live together anymore, why she only sees him on certain weekends. I answer honestly in ways she can understand. I tell her that love is complicated, but respect and honesty are not. I tell her that families come in many forms, and what matters most is that she is loved deeply and completely. And she is. I moved to a new place. Small, cozy mine. The first time I turned the key in the lock, I stood in the doorway for a long time, just soaking it in. It was quiet. Safe. There were no ghosts here. Just potential. I started going to therapy, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand myself better. To trace the patterns that led me to accept less than I deserved for so long. It was uncomfortable at times. There were tears, angry realizations, moments of deep shame. But there was also healing. Clarity. The slow, steady rebuilding of trust, not in someone else, but in myself. I've reconnected with old friends. I've laughed more in the last few months than I did in the last year of our marriage. I even went on a few dates. Nothing serious, just dinner and conversation. But each one reminded me that there's still joy out there, still possibility. I don't define myself by what he did anymore. He made his choices. He lost a family. He lost me. And maybe one day, when the high of secrecy and side affairs fades, he'll realize what he gave up. But that's not my burden to carry. I carry only what's mine, and that weight gets lighter every day. I used to think the worst part was the betrayal, the lies, the gaslighting. But now I know the worst part was losing myself, shrinking to fit into a version of love that asked me to accept less. But I found myself again, piece by piece, stronger, wiser, whole. If you're reading this and you've been lied to, betrayed, made to feel like your instincts are the enemy, please know this. You are not crazy. You are not weak, and you are not alone. The truth may hurt, but it also frees you. And on the other side of that pain, there is peace. Real peace. The kind you don't have to question. The kind that doesn't hide behind long showers and second phones. The kind you build for yourself with your own damn hands.